Hey, it's Mr. Ring going over the Precalc Quiz number 11, trig graphs, sine and cosine, taken March 6, 2020. Box answers questions 1 to 4 are multiple choice. Question number 1, what is the amplitude and period of y equals 2 cosine 3x? If I just put letters above this, a cosine bx, you see that your a value is equal to 2 and your b value is equal to 3. Your amplitude is the absolute value of a, so if I put in a equals 2 there, you're going to get the amplitude to be 2. No, yes. Remember, take the absolute value and then right there. The period for sine, cosine, secant, and cosecant is 2 pi over b. So if your b value is 3, put it in there. You get a period of 2 pi over 3. Yes, no, yes, no. So your correct answer is going to be D. Question number 2. Find the phase shift. The phase shift is the same thing as a horizontal shift. And you should really be thinking of the letter C. So I'm going to take this equation, sine x minus pi over 2. And the reason why I did that is so that when I write my letters, a sine b x minus c, you'll recognize that the c value is negative pi over 2. So when c is less than 0, you're going to go left. So you will go left pi over 2, which is letter choice D. Remember the silly phrase? Add to x, go west or left. So you are adding to x here, which means you're going to go left pi over 2 units. Question number 3. Find the phase shift of the graph of the function. So again, same thing. This is a horizontal shift, and we basically need to find the c value. Let's write it over here so we have a little more space. And as I'm doing that, I'm also going to factor out the 4. We've been using the b value to the right of the trig function, but left of the parentheses, which means you need a value outside the parentheses, so you're going to have to factor. Now, your hint to factoring is actually just the number that's right in front of x, which is a 4. 4 times something equals 4x. This would be x. I showed you guys this in class, like doing this box. 4 times the box equals pi over 2. So 4 times the box equals pi over 2. Essentially, to get rid of the 4 here, you're just dividing by 4. Dividing by 4 is the same as 1/4. 4's will cancel, and then your box is equal to pi over 8. So this would be pi over 8. And then you can just put in your letters, a sine b x minus c. And then recognize that your c value here is pi over 8. When c is greater than 0, it's going to go towards the right. So your answer is going to be D. Now in this problem, you're not adding to x, so you can't use that silly phrase. There's no plus, so you're doing the opposite of this. So you're not going left, you're going right. Right pi over 8. And last question, number 4. Find a function for the graph below. All right, there's a couple things you can do here. It doesn't appear to be any shifts. They could be, but I'm just going to put a box around here. And I notice that it's starting at 0 and ending at 0. So I know that's going to be sine. Yes, no, yes, and yes. I recognize that the period starts and ends by 2 pi over 3. So the period, the formula is 2 pi over b, and in this problem, the period, finishes by 2 pi over 3. Hopefully you realize that you don't really need to do much, but your b value is equal to 3. You can kind of see that, right? Same, different. And if you needed to, you could cross multiply. And then realize that b is equal to 3, right? Okay, so you have b equals 3, and then your amplitude is from here to here. So you have an a value. Now pay attention. It's going to be positive or negative. Because remember, the amplitude here is the absolute value of a. Because if I put in 3 or negative 3 here, I want the answer to be 3, which we have. Okay, now, so if I know that the b value is 3, so it can't be that one. It could be this one. It could be this one, and it could be this one. The only thing we need to figure out is it positive or negative. So if you look at your sign, just do the quadrantals going around, right? 1, 0, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, 0, negative 1. So sine is the second one. It's going to start at 0, and then it'll go to positive 1. So it should have gone to positive 1. Or positive 3 in this case. But it didn't. It flipped around. So you have a reflection. So a is going to be negative because it's flipped over the x-axis. Flipped over x-axis, which means that your answer is going to be C. And I told you guys that I had forgot the minus sign, so make sure you have that. So 4 multiple choice questions times 2, the front side's worth 8. All right, let's go over the back side. Number 7, match the given function to its graph by writing a letter in the blank. Good idea is for each of these is that you're putting your box around one graph. I noticed that this one is starting at 1 and ending at 1, so this is cosine. And if you do that for all of them, this one looks to be sine, because it's starting at 0 and ending at 0, with the amplitude of 2. This one has an amplitude of 1. This is sine, starts at 1, ends at 1, and then amplitude of 1. Cosine, amplitude of 2. Now you also notice that this one period ends by pi. So if period is the equation 2 pi over b, and then the period of the whole problem is pi, then you just solve here. B times pi equals 2 pi divided by pi, and you realize that b is equal to 2 in this problem. So 1 times cosine 2x, that would be choice this one. Go down here, same thing, this one ends by 2 pi, so that would be a 1x, 2 sine x, 2 sine 1x, this would be choice C. Here you have sine 1, finishes by pi, same thing. Your b value would be 2, so this is 1 times sine. Oh, I switched those around. should be a C, and this one should be a B. And then this one is 2 cosine, ends by 2 pi, so your period is just going to be a 1, right? Because 2 pi over 1 is, B value is 1. So 2 cosine x will give you D. So B, D, C, A is your answer. All right, remember for these, you can either have, I'll let you guys choose one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the first one. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is get my letters. In this problem, you're going to recognize that your A value is -4. Your B value, which is right there, which is a 1. And your C value, which is a pi over 2. So an A value of -4, amplitude is absolute value of A. Absolute value of -4 is 4. You have an amplitude of 4. B value is 1, so period equals 2 pi over B. Period is equal to 2 pi over 1. Period is 2 pi. C value is greater than 0, so you're going to go towards right, pi over 2. Remember, add to x, go left. There's no adding, so it's going to go right. I have a phase shift here, so that means you're going to have to put that between 0 and 2 pi. Everything to the right of the trig function. Let me highlight that for you. We're going to go ahead and just add pi over 2 on all of those. So you're going to get pi over 2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to, if I multiply this by 2 over 2, this gives me 4 pi over 2. So 4 pi over 2 plus 1 pi over 2 gives me 5 pi over 2. This will be my start, and this will be my end. So my x values, so I have 1 pi over 2 and 5 pi over 2. 1 plus 5 is 6, and 6 divided by 2 is 3 pi over 2. And then you can just count, right? 1, 3, 5. So this is going to be a 2. And this is going to be a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to go right to left. So now I'm going to subtract pi over 2 from each of these. So it's the x value minus pi over 2. X value minus pi over 2. 1 minus 1 is 0. 2 minus 1 is 1 pi over 2. 3 minus 1 gives me 2 pi over 2, or just pi. 4 minus 1 is 3 pi over 2. And 5 minus 1 is 4 pi over 2, which is 2 pi. And then now I'm going to take the sine, so evaluate sine. Over here, what were we doing? We were subtracting. Subtract. So sine is 0. Sine at pi over 2 is 1. Sine at pi is 0. Sine at 3 pi over 2 is -1. And sine at 2 pi is 0. And then lastly, you're going to multiply by -4. Multiply by -4. So -4 times these values. And then we can go ahead and graph this. Now we normally did 5 values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But remember now, we're being pushed off by pi over 2. So this is going to be my first, second, third, fourth, and this is my 5th point. So my starting point will be pi over 2. Pi, 3 pi over 2, 2 pi, 5 pi over 2. And then I have values up to 4. And then I'm just going to go ahead and plot those points. Pi over 2, 0. Pi at -4. 3 pi over 2 at 0. 2 pi at 4. And 5 pi over 2 at 0. That's what my graph looks like. What's the difference between 8 and 9? 8 has a parentheses with a shift because you'll find a C value. Although this has parentheses, there is no C value in number 9. So let's do number 9. I'm going to write the letters. A cosine B X. And this is a D value. So I got A is 2. B there is to the right of the trig function, but in front of the x. To the left of the x, right of the trig function, so B is going to be pi. And then my D value is going to be 1. And remember, I actually like to move it out to the front, so yours is going to read something like this. 1 plus 2 cosine pi x. Absolute value there is going to be a 2. My B value is pi, so if my formula is going to be period equals 2 pi over B, 2 pi over pi, and then those will cancel, and my period is a length of 2. And then D is greater than 0, so this is going to go up 1. Let's get our values. So I'm going to start the x, the origin, and then go up to a length of 2. Let's do that. And I think I have enough on my graph. Let's see if I can do a better job of spacing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's going to look better. 0 and 2. So 0 plus 2 divided by 2 is 1. 0 plus 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. If you add those two together, you get 3.5. Right? So this would be 2 over 2. This would be 4 over 2. 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So that'd be 3/2. All right, we're going to work right to left. And we're doing mass production, so we're just putting in our x value of 0 here. And then we're going to multiply it by pi. Multiply by pi. So it's 0, pi over 2, 1 pi or pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. That led me to the quadrantal angles. Next thing we're going to do is evaluate cosine. Eval cosine. So cosine at 0 is 1, 0. Cosine at pi is -1. Cosine 3 pi over 2 is 0. And cosine 2 pi, the exact value, is going to be 1. And then we're going to multiply by 2. So I'm going to multiply all those numbers by 2. And then lastly, I'm going to add 1. Because you're shifting up 1. Alright, let's go ahead and graph the last one here. Now, based off these values, then, I kind of know what to write on my y-axis. So 1, 2, 3. 0, 3, 0, 3. 1/2, 1. 1, -1. 3/2, 1. 2, 3. Point out a couple of things to you. The midline is here, and you'll notice that your midline is actually your D value, right? Because you're being vertical shifting. It used to be on the x-axis, and all the points were shifted up 1 unit. And then from here to here is your amplitude of 2, and then your period starts at 0, ends by 2. That's what your period is. So backside, 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 points. And then 12 on the back. That gives us a total of 22. Good luck.
Math.
Say it again.
Our math.